So my name is Martin Penny. I'm the head of unit for communication in the executive agency for the European Research Council in Brussels. And it's my pleasure to moderate this session with Bojan and colleagues in Sofia this morning. Let me give you an overview of what we're going to go through this morning, because I think it's good to give you a flavor. You've seen the agenda, but let me take you briefly through it. So the first part, which will be mainly presentations online, will provide an overview of ERC funding schemes, the application procedures, and novelties which are in our current work program, which you'll need to be aware of when you're applying for grants. You will all participants will be able to benefit from practical advice and insight shared by current ERC grantees, are all Bulgarian, and also a Bulgarian researcher who's been a member of the ERC evaluation panels. And you'll also learn about the support from the National Contact Point System, which is your local support of advice and guidance in preparing applications, and also national support mechanisms that are available in Bulgaria. We'll have 2 questions and answer sessions. So I will talk you through the agenda later and explain when the questions and answer sessions will come up, but there'll be plenty of opportunity for you to engage directly with the speakers. There'll be a second part of the session, which will be conducted only with those of you on site and will be conducted only in the Bulgarian language. Just before we start with the presentations, let me give you some housekeeping rules. It seems strange to talk about housekeeping when we're online, and these are perhaps more for the colleagues that are joining us online. Just so that you know, your cameras and microphones have been switched off. This is to ensure that we have stability in the meeting. When you come to ask questions, and this is true for those of you in the room and also those of you who are online, we ask that the questions are asked through Slido. And you see on the screen now, you can either take a picture of the QR code or go to slido.com and enter the code that you see on the screen here. So this will be the way in which we'll ask all questions and answers. Those of you online, we ask you, do not use the chat. We will not monitor that. The questions and answers will need to be through Slido only. So now I've given you a flavor of the event. I would like to hand back to Bojan to introduce our first speaker. So Bojan, back to you.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, did you hear me? Now on the call from Sofia, I will give the floor to Deputy Minister of Education and Science, Academician Vitalov, just to open the session.
Hello, also from me. I'd like to thank everybody for coming to this meeting, especially our guests from Brussels. We are very interested in this program to hear the suggestions, the ideas, because Bulgaria is not doing very well in ERC. We would like to see how we can improve that. In fact, our ministry with the Ministry of Innovation and Growth is preparing measures to boost Bulgarian participation in Horizon and in FP10. And these are going to be finished, I think, later this month. But your input from the point of view of ERC is quite essential. We would like to hear what we are missing. As Bojan said, we have potential, but we don't have the success. So I'm here as a visitor and as somebody who would like to learn something this morning. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vitalov. Martin?
Sure. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. And it's great to hear that there will be measures put in place at the national level. From our side, we would like to see many more applications from Bulgaria. We know that there are many excellent researchers with excellent ideas, and we'd like to see those turned into applications. And this is really what we're trying to encourage through this information session today. So, Deputy Minister, thank you for your words. The president of the ERC Scientific Council would have liked to have joined you today. Unfortunately, she's not able to be here, but we have on screen a video message from Maria Leptin. So, Bojan, if you could play the message from the ERC president, please. There seems to be a technical problem. Maria will actually be in Bulgaria, I understand, next week, but unfortunately, she's not able to be with you there today.
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry that I'm not able to be with you today. However, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to say some welcoming words by video. As you know, the ERC was created in 2007 to support excellent scientists from anywhere in the world, of any age, and from any discipline. Bulgaria has a long and successful history in research and innovation and has a very good engagement with the ERC. Most notably, of course, Commissioner Ekaterina Zakharieva, who has given strong and consistent support to the ERC. And both we here at the ERC and the scientific community in general is extremely grateful for her fight for a standalone framework program in the next multi-annual financial framework and for her success in achieving a doubling of the budget. Also, your former Prime Minister, Nikolai Denkov, has strong connections in having served as a chair of ERC evaluation panels. I would like to thank the Ministry of Education and Science for organizing this event today. It will be an opportunity for everyone to learn from former panel members and from existing ERC grantees on how the ERC evaluation process works and to get a better idea of what it takes to prepare a winning ERC grant. Remember, it's your own ideas, it's your own achievements, it's your proposal, your creativity that counts. We don't have quotas, we don't care about host institutions, we don't care about where you are. It's your proposal that will be evaluated. And I'm very pleased that your national contact points are here on site today and the ERC staff who can all answer your questions that you may have and that may help you to write a better grant proposal. So I wish you a very inspiring event and good luck. We hope to see more from Bulgaria.
Thank you very much, Boyan. And as you heard from our president, we're particularly keen in ensuring that we receive more applications from Bulgaria and indeed from all of the countries which currently have lower representation and lower participation rates in the program. This information session is part of the activities, and the Scientific Council has a dedicated working group for widening participation to ensure that we can provide additional support, information and guidance so that we can receive applications from all parts of Europe at an equal basis. And you'll hear a little bit more about some of those actions from our Bulgarian colleagues later in the morning. But let me take you through the program for the day. So we'll start off with a presentation from Andrei Shritek, who is a head of sector in the scientific department of the ERC. We will then hear from two of the national contact points, your local sources of advice and guidance, Boyan, you've already met, and Zara, who are both in the national contact point services in Bulgaria, and your local sources of advice and guidance. And I think if you take one piece of advice from this opening session, they need to become your best friends. If you are looking to put in an ERC application, they are there to help and support and guide you. We'll then hear from Milan Bogdanovic, who's a former panel member, who will give his insight and guidance into the evaluation process, and also from three ERC grantees in the second part of the talk, who I will introduce subsequently. Just to give you an overview, the first two presentations from Andrei, Boyan, and Zara will take place, and then there'll be a questions and answer session. There'll be a short break, and then the program will continue with the presentation with practical tips from the panel member and testimonials from the ERC grantees, and there will be a second and final question and answer session. And as I said, following that, for on-site participations, there'll be a further session in the Bulgarian language on how to increase Bulgarian applications and success. I've mentioned that all questions will be in Slido. As is normal in Slido, when you're looking through Slido, you may see that others have asked a question similar or identical to the one that you would like to ask. In that case, I would encourage you to use the thumbs up sign for that question, because we will take the questions in the order of priority. So those which have received the highest thumbs up, we will answer first. And it will allow you then not to have to type in a question which is perhaps very similar. So with no further ado, I think you're keen to hear more about the ERC and the practical advice. And so I will give the floor to my colleague, Andrei, who will take you through the ERC funding schemes, the application evaluation process, the rules on resubmission, and the novelties in the 2026 work program. So Andrea, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Can you see my slides full screen?
We see them online full screen. Hopefully in the room, they can also see them well.
In the room is perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Martin. Zdravitje na всички и много благодаря за поканата. I'm afraid that's the extent of my Bulgarian. Thank you again, Martin. Thank you, Bojan. Thank you, Deputy Minister, for the invitation. I will be giving you an overview of the ERC in general and the grant schemes. Then I will go into the submission and evaluation process, including some novelties of 2026, but also some that were introduced in 2024, just for the sake of completion, because they are, of course, still valid. I'll then be going into some tips and hints for preparing your proposal, and then have a few slides on Bulgarian participation in the ERC program. And as you've just heard from Martin, the question and answer session will actually be after the colleagues from the national contact point. So the ERC's mission is to support investigator-driven frontier research across all fields based on scientific excellence. So the important part really here is that the philosophy of the ERC is completely bottom-up. So you send us your great ideas, and we, or rather the scientific community, facilitated by us, will then evaluate those proposals on the scientific merit. So there are no predetermined priorities, no themes, no missions. It's really bottom-up. The ERC is part of the framework program of the EU for research and innovation, which is called Horizon Europe, runs from 2021 to 2027. And it is, you can see it here, the laser pointer. It is in Pillar 1 for excellent science, together with Marie Curie and infrastructures. And its total budget over the 7 years is 16 billion. That's actually the largest single funding line in Horizon Europe. And it represents roughly 17% of the entire budget of Horizon Europe. The ERC is governed by the Scientific Council. So the Scientific Council sets the strategy of the ERC. It consists of 22 eminent scientists, senior researchers from all over Europe. You've heard a message from the president, Maria Lepton, here in the center. And they're really the representation of the scientific community for the ERC, again, setting the strategy. And then finally, we have the ERC Executive Agency, so my employer. The ERC Executive Agency implements the strategy as set by the Scientific Council. It manages the operations, in particular the evaluations, but also the project follow-up, and carries out communication activities and ensures dissemination of the results. So why should you apply for an ERC grant? The main point is really given below here. It gives you independence, flexibility, and visibility. So you can research a topic completely of your own choice with a team of your own choice from wherever. You have financial autonomy for the whole 5 years. You can negotiate with the host institution the best conditions of your work and attract top team members. And then a very important feature really of ERC grants is the portability. So you can move to any place in Europe at any time during the grant during the grant preparation. So it's completely portable. And of course, the ERC is a quality label. It's a very rigorous evaluation process. And if you receive an ERC grant, it will really boost your visibility and your profile. Now we come to an overview of the grant schemes. So we have the main individual grants. Those are the starting grant for more junior researchers looking to establish an independent research group. That's for 2 to 7 years after the PhD. I'll get a little bit more into the eligibility later. The budget is up to 1.5 million for 5 years, and there's a possibility for additional funding. I will get to the additional funding in the next slide. Then you have the consolidated grant, also an individual grant for 7 to 12 years after the PhD. So for researchers that have already consolidated their scientific career, this is up to 2 million for 5 years, also with the possibility for additional funding. Then finally, we have the advanced grant for senior researchers, up to 2.5 million for 5 years, also, of course, for additional funding. And then if you have research projects which cannot be addressed by one team alone, there's also the synergy grant possibility for 2 to 4 PIs, up to 10 million, and plus up to 4 million of additional funding. Importantly, one of these, only one, no more, of these researchers, of the PIs, can be outside of the EU or associated countries. And then for people who have had a grant already, any of the above, there's a proof of concept grant, which is basically aiming to translate research into the marketplace, into innovation. So for the additional funding, there are some changes that have been made for the work program 2026. If you are familiar or were familiar with the previous version of additional funding, there were predefined categories. So there are no more categories. This is really up to you to request possibilities. Examples for additional funding would include major equipment or access to large research facilities, startup costs, anything like that. It can also include personnel costs. Previously, there were restrictions, so no more restrictions. And it's up to 1 million if you are in a EU member state or associated country. And if you're moving to an EU country or an associated member state, then it's up to 2 million. So this is not necessarily for only the relocation cost. It's really for people that are moving from outside the EU or associated country to relocating, then it's up to 2 million. And for the synergy grant, it's up to 4 million in additional funding. There are changes that have been announced for the work program 2026. So this is just a heads up. This is not the law of the land yet, but the eligibility periods for the starting and consolidated grants are proposed to be changed from 2 to 7 for the starting grant, to 0 to 10 years, and for the consolidated grant to 5 to 15 years. So you can read up more about these changes here. Like I said, this is not yet decided, but it has been announced. Similarly, for next year, something that has been announced but not decided yet is a new funding scheme, the ERC Plus, which is up to 7 years for a total funding amount of 7 million euros. So this follows the announcement of Commission President von der Leyen for the Choose Europe for Science initiative. So now let's switch gears and go to the submission and evaluation process, including some novelties of the 2026 and also 2024 programs. So excellence is really the only criterion. There is no other aspect that influences the decision. So societal impact or outreach activities are not criteria. It's really just excellence. And excellence means excellence of the research project first and foremost, and excellence of the applicant, of the PI. So for the research project, it has to be of groundbreaking nature. You really have to push the frontiers of the research. It has to be ambitious, and also it has to be feasible, of course. It has to be, you will have to be able to do it. And the PI will be evaluated on intellectual capacity and creativity, and also commitment. This means time commitment, if you're dedicating enough time to actually carry out the research project that you propose. But importantly, really the research project, it takes the front seat in what will be evaluated. So it's first the groundbreaking nature and ambition of the project, and the PI will be evaluated to the extent that he or she is capable of carrying out this very ambitious project. So for the evaluation process, if you're not familiar with the with the structure of the proposal, and part 1 and part 2 doesn't mean anything to you at this moment, don't worry, I'll get to that in the next slides. So it is one single submission. You submit all your documents in one step at a given deadline, and the evaluation will be in 2 steps. So in step 1, there will be a remote assessment by the panel members. Excuse me. Here, what will be evaluated is only part 1 of the research proposal and the CV and track record. So they they receive the proposals, the panel members, they evaluate the proposals, rank it, score it, and then they meet in a panel meeting and discuss these proposals. Then there are two possibilities. Either it is rejected in step 1, it receives a score B or C, then the feedback to the applicant is given, or it is retained, or it receives a score A. So if it receives a score A, then it goes to step 2. But for logistical reasons and for reasons of the evaluation, only up to 44 panels, only up to 44 proposals can be passed on to step 2. So it is possible that you receive an A non-invited, but will not be invited to step 2. Now in step 2, there will be a remote assessment by the panel members of the complete research proposal, but also of remote reviewers. And these are really experts in the field. Then there will be a panel meeting, this time with an interview of the applicants, up to 44 applicants. And again, there will be a scoring. It will either receive a B, there is no more C, or it will receive an A. If there is enough budget, it will be funded. There's also the category that it is excellent enough, but there's just not enough budget to fund the project. Something that I would like to highlight here is really who makes the decision. Because these panel members, these are senior scientists, experts in the field. They act as generalists and they really make all the decisions. So the scientific council makes no decision on the evaluation, and employees of the agency, such as myself or Martin, are not involved at all in the decision making. So it's really the scientific community making the decision itself on which proposals will be funded. The evaluation process for the synergy grant, I will not go into it in more detail. It is a little bit more complicated. It's a 3-step procedure. Basically, the step 2 evaluation is split into 2 steps for the synergy grant in a way. So the changes in the work program for 2026, and going a little bit more into what is supposed to be in part A, in part 1 of the proposal, and in part B of the proposal. So part 1 is 5 pages. There is no change up to what it was before. Importantly, references do not count towards the page limit. You actually should include all the relevant references, and they do not count towards those 5 pages. So this should contain why the proposal is original, creative, with important questions in the research field, how the project will advance the frontier of knowledge, what you expect may be changed, open, challenged, or how the current understanding will be different after your work has been undertaken. So concretely, you lay out the current state of the knowledge, you explain the scientific question and the objectives, and you present the overall approach or research strategy. So if I have to put it in very short words, what are you going to do? Why is it important, and how are you going to do it? For part B2, there have been somewhat major changes. This is now reduced to 7 pages. Again, references do not count towards the page limit and should absolutely be included. It is much shorter than it was previously. And the focus of part B1 and B2 has also changed. If you look at previous programs, there was a little bit of overlap between parts B1 and B2. Now, 1 is really about what are you going to do and an idea of how are you going to do it. And then part B2 is about the detailed explanation of how you're going to do it, the research methodology, the work plan, risk management, important because ambitious frontier projects will, of course, come with some risks, and you need to have mitigation measures. Frontier research doesn't always work out the way you planned it, 5 years ago. It has to be a justification of the requested budget and resources, but this is not about the budget table. It's really about in terms of, personnel, equipment that you need. There's no detailed budget in part B2. That's what the administrative form is for. And any other information that you think is important but could not be included in part B1. So in the first step, only part 1 and the CV track record are assessed. In step 2 is the complete research proposal. And like I said, the design, the philosophy of the change was really to delineate part B1 and B2. So try to avoid repeating parts, the sections that you have in part 1, and do not repeat them in part 2. Then the CV and track record, the resources, and the time commitment, I already mentioned, that will be assessed. So this is for the research project. There have also been some changes, and these were already for the work program 2024. on the evaluation of the PI, because it was thought that it was the previous version was a little bit too prescriptive. So now the philosophy is to allow a little bit more for the flexibility, the variety of research careers that you have, and the variety of research output that you might produce in your research career, to really give that a little bit more room to allow for a more qualitative and less quantitative evaluation. So this is an overview of the changes. There was a simplification. It allows researchers to provide a narrative description of the work. There's room for explaining career breaks or unconventional career paths. There's room for describing contributions that go beyond the standard academic duties. And the last point, of course, this is not a change. So supervision of graduate students or postdocs is not an evaluation criterion. So this is then what the new CV and track record will look like, or what it asked for. There will be a table of personal details, such as date of the PhD and nationality, etc. And then there will be this research achievements and peer recognition, which consists mainly of the research achievements. So you can pick 10 outputs of your choice. So these can be, but don't have to be, publications. They can be book chapters, patents, data sets, any contribution you have made to the scientific field that might not be a publication in one of the main journals of the field. There's, of course, the peer recognition, such as prizes and awards. And then there's a third part, additional information, where you can give more information on career breaks and diverse career paths. If you're interested in finding out more about the why, the rationales of the changes in the work programs 2024 and 2026, you can find it here for the 2024 changes and here for the changes to the work program 2026. To conclude this section, this is the call calendar 2026. So the starting grants deadline has already passed. So the upcoming deadlines for the grants are the consolidated grant in January 13. Then for the synergy grant, well, actually, this I should have grayed out also. And then for the advanced grant, it's coming up in August. So that's later next year. So now we're going into the more practical tips and hints for preparing your proposal. So before you start, of course, everything starts with a great idea. So do you have an idea what you want to do? Do your literature research, see what has already been done, what is being done. Very important, and I will get back to this time and again, is discuss this idea with your peers, your colleagues, your mentors, because I have mentioned it before. These are the people who ultimately make the decision on the funding. So if you're convinced that you have a great idea, if you have discussed it with your peers, are you in the right position to carry out your research? Do you have the right background? Then absolutely go for it and submit an ERC proposal. And now this is more about the logistics parts. So this here, register early, get familiar with the funding and tenders portal. So this is really not just for the ERC, but for all EU funding, where you would submit all your proposals. You have the link at the bottom here. This is where you can also download the templates and where a lot of the communication happens. These are ERC resources. Read the call documents. So there is the information for applicants. I've heard it described by grants offices as the Bible. There's really a lot of the information, probably most of the information you could ask for, you will probably find in the information for applicants. For us, the Bible is more the work program at the ERC, because this is really a legally binding document. Also on the website, we have a section for frequently asked questions, and you can also access the guide for peer reviewers on our website. So this might be also for you very interesting to see what the reviewers are actually looking for. Talk to your institution's grant office, if there is one, of course. Get the host institution letter, the letter of commitment from the host institution. Start this process early. In some universities, this can take a long time because it has to go through all the hierarchies of the university and then signed by the president sometimes. Contact your national contact point. Keep your eyes open for ERC-related events. So you're well on track for that one, because it's these exact events exactly like these is the ones I mean with this. And again, talk to grantees and former panel members. really, they will be able to provide you a lot of input. And like I said, they are the people who in the end make the funding decisions. If you have any questions that cannot be answered by any of the above or by the grant office, you can also, of course, at any time contact the ERC executive agency, and here are the functional mailboxes given. One important point is anybody who you list in the proposal as a collaborator has to have agreed to it before the submission deadline. There's that you don't need to upload it along with the documents, but you do have to have their agreement. Then Then the next step is to which one you actually apply to, which call you actually apply to. So, ensuring the eligibility. So the eligibility is calculated and as of January 1st for the call year. So if you're applying for a 2026 call, the important date is January 1st, 2026, and from there you calculate back the 2 to 7 years for starting, or the 7 to 12 years for the consolidated grant. Really make sure that you fulfill all the eligibility criteria. There's nothing more frustrating than putting a lot of work into a proposal and then you get rejected because it's ineligible. Also check the resubmission restrictions for the eligibility. It's important to note that these do not go forward. So it's not like you receive a B in step 1 or a C in step 1 and then you're blocked for X years, but it's really looking backwards. So for each year you have to check what the eligibility is. So if you're applying for a call now, what does it mean that you had a C or a B last year or the year before? Very important, 50% of the working time has to be spent inside the EU or associated country. That is an absolute necessity, and the minimum time commitment for starting is 50%, for consolidated is 40%, and for advanced synergy is 30%. There are various possibilities of extensions of this of the eligibility window. You can see these in the information for applicants and the work programs. There's maternity leave, 18 months for each child born before or after the deadline. And for all the other ones, it's really important to have documentation. So if you take paternity leave or parental leave, it's the documented in time that's taken into account. For long-term illness, there's also the possibility, again, it has to be documented. For clinical training, this is also a possibility to extend the eligibility window, but also has to be documented. Other possibilities are for major disasters or seeking asylum or gender-based violence or any other form of violence. Again, it has to be documented. This is all the information that you have to submit. It might look a little bit overwhelming at first, many documents, but it's really not. So this is part B1. This is one single PDF. This is part B2. It's also one single PDF. This is the proposal. These are the administrative forms. They're not too onerous to fill out, but you do want to pay a lot of attention to the budget. Be very careful about the budget. Make sure everything is properly justified and consistent with your resources that you list in part B2. And then there are annexes, which are the statement of support from the host institution and a copy of your PhD and any other documents that might be necessary. Then you have to choose a panel. There are 28 panels overall in 3 different domains. And these are really not thematic priorities. So these are really just for us to organize the evaluation. So you can see the panel structure in the work program and also in the application for applicants, in the information for applicants. And really, it's completely, like I said before, it's completely bottom up. So you identify where your panel fits the best and which keywords fit the best to your proposal. You can flag a secondary proposal if you have a very interdisciplinary proposal. There is a common misconception, which is to choose panels based on, for instance, how oversubscribed they are. Again, it's all bottom up. So if one panel receives twice as many applications, they will also receive twice as much budget. So the success rate is really, we're trying to equalize it as much as possible over all the panels. So really choose the panel that is right for your proposal. Some more tips. You can also check for when you're choosing panels, you can't check previous panel members. So you will see when you go to the ERC website and you look at the list of the panel members that they tend to come back several times every other year. So you have a pretty good idea of who might be in the panel. Of course, no guarantee, but you get an idea of who will be there. You can also check funded proposals and get an idea of what was funded in the past, and you can check the abstract, I believe, also. So you get an idea of how to write a convincing abstract. Initially, proposals are assigned to the PI's choice, but transfers do sometimes happen, not very often. We really try to avoid it if there is a clear mistake or if there is really a lack of expertise in a panel. But both panel chairs of the panels where it's coming from and where it's being transferred to, they both have to agree to this transfer. So some general tips for writing a proposal. First of all, it's really hard. It's very difficult work. So devote plenty of time. I have heard of grantees who said, you know, I just wrote it in 3 weeks and I didn't give it to anybody else to read. But that's really the exception. That was actually a successful grantee who said that. But most of the time, people devote half a year or so, and they really bounced off colleagues time and time again and really refine their ideas. And again, I'm coming back to this point. Get critical feedback on your proposal from your peers and colleagues. These are the people that will make the decision in the end. And then, of course, some general guidelines. Make it easy to read. Divide it into sections. Use tables. Use large enough font. Avoid typos and mistakes, of course. These will not sink your proposal, but it's just it leaves a better impression if all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. Make sure you list all the relevant references. They do not count towards the time limit, the page limit, so don't skimp on the references. Focus on the main points, but avoid, like, don't shove in any extra objectives. Really stay focused, stay on the main point, and don't oversell your own work. Give credit to where it's due. This also relates to make sure that you list all the references. And do not submit the proposal last minute, because many people tend to do it, and we tend to have a lot of traffic, which then might cause problems for your submission. And that is also very frustrating. Of course, you work on it for 6 months, and then you missed the deadline because you waited for the last minute. So for the interview, this is now, if you clear step 1 and you're in step 2, you're invited to an interview. Just some general guidelines on how to approach the interview. So have clear and focused slides and do not oversell. You are talking to scientists. So really focus on the science, focus on the main message. Anticipate all the questions. Again, talk to your peers and really have them ask critical answers, really questions, really have them try to poke holes in your arguments. Anticipate all the questions and keep your answers focused. It's really, the panel will have many questions for you, and the more you can get through, the better it is for you, if you have the correct answer, but you really should. Know all the details of your proposal, of course, and of all the methods. Know who the competitors are, who would be collaborators. If you have new work, new results, present it in the interview. Even if it's not in the proposal, present it. Know the details of the budget. The panel might ask about this, and be prepared to explain the necessity of anything that you actually list in the budget. There's not much need to go into your CV. The panel members do know your CV. And then before the interview, you have 30 minutes. The organization is up to the panel. So sometimes the interviews are 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes, sorry, not the interview. The presentation is 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes the presentation is 10 or 12 minutes. They will let you know well in advance. In total, you only have 30 minutes. Make sure you stay on time with the 10 minutes. Practice, and then practice again. And do mock interviews with your colleagues. And again, try to have them try to punch holes into your presentation. Here are some common reasons for rejections. The first 2 here are really about finding the right balance. So you do not want the scope to be too narrow, because then it can't be groundbreaking. Do not have it be too broad. It has to be focused enough to be convincing. The project has to be groundbreaking. It shouldn't be incremental, but of course, you have to find the right balance. If you're pushing the frontier too much, it might not be feasible anymore. So it's a balance to find there. There is no magic message here. You do have to, for each project, you do have to find the right balance. The work plan and program, the work plan might not be detailed enough or unclear. I mentioned risk management is something that will be looked at. Insufficient information on how you're actually going to do it, the details on how you're going to do it, and if it's a collaborative project. So for the single PI grants, these are really your grants, not somebody else's. It's not a collaboration. It's your project. The PI might not have the track record to actually carry out the proposed project. Like I said, the PI excellence will be evaluated. For interdisciplinary proposals, there might be a lacking expertise in one area, and again, it should be your project. Or what sometimes happens is that there is a lack of independence, that you have not proven yet that you can independently lead a project. For the interview, common points of criticisms are the answers are too vague, or just leaving some questions or issues completely unaddressed, not being able to provide supporting evidence, or that similar work has been published in the meantime. Then, of course, it's not pushing the frontier anymore. So just some concluding messages on the tips and hints. Do not exclude yourself. If you have a great idea, really go for it. There's no, like I said, there are no predetermined priorities, and there's no inherent biases against any research directions or against any researcher profiles. If you fail, submit it again. As soon as you're eligible, submit it again. The resubmissions have a higher success rate by up to half. So the resubmission success rates, when they're normally 10 to 12%, they might be as high as 20%. Take risks. Of course, it has to be a groundbreaking project. I already mentioned there are no predefined profiles for the CV and track record, and you do have the opportunity to provide room explanation for anything that is unusual in your career. For the evaluation, I mentioned it in the beginning, there's more focus on the project, less on the PI, but you do have to be in a position to be able to carry out the project. And very important, aspects which are not a factor in the evaluation: journal impact factors, mobility, where you have done your research, which host institution, if you had previous grants or how many or how much money it was, supervision experience. These are not factors in the evaluation. It's about the research project and the PI. Here you can find some more information. I believe we will provide the slides, the ERC videos. These are 10 to 20 minutes each, devoted to different topics. You can find them on YouTube. And with that, I have a few more minutes. I would like to go into the Bulgarian participation so far in the ERC program. So the participation has been modest so far. You can see here for Horizon 20 the number of evaluated proposals that came from Bulgaria. So we're around 2 to 4 per call per year. And most of these, you see here the different categories of how far a proposal can go. Most of these received a C in step 1. These are the red ones, or a B in step 1. So meaning this one would be often C would block you for 2 years for reapplication, B would block you for 1 year for reapplication. And for Horizon Europe, so far the numbers do not look much different. There are just a few proposals for each call for each year, and they do tend to be rejected early. The average success rate of ERC grants is about 12%. Sometimes for some grants it's lower, for some it's higher, but it's around 12%. And you can see here Bulgaria has a very low success rate. The reasons for this, there are of course many discussions on and many analyses on how to improve the participation of widening European countries, and the challenges that were identified are listed here. So people from researchers from widening countries tend to apply less, and they also reapply less frequently and less successfully. However, once they're in step 2, they tend to do as well as any other proposal. Often they fail in step 1 due to the grantsmanship skills, so writing the proposal. There is no difference in the CV. There's low investment in national investment in R&D. There's actually, if you plot the government expenditure on research versus the number of ERC projects, there is a very strong correlation between those two. Lower support, if any, by institutional granting offices or national contact points, and lower exposure to international research and innovation networks. So, of course, some of these you can't do anything about, but some of these you can do something about. And these are, it's actually 3 of the 5 points. So do apply. When you have a great idea, do apply. Do not exclude yourself. and do reapply, learn your lessons, and reapply. Go to the events, talk to grantees, talk to panel members, and really try to improve your proposal. And go, as far as possible, go to conferences, network with colleagues, with peers, with mentors. Really try to get yourself out there and try to get exposure. There's some opportunities for, and this is really my last slide, I believe. So there are some opportunities for visiting fellowships and the mentoring initiative to help compose better proposals. And I believe that Bulgarian participation is planned. Probably the colleagues from the national contact points will tell us more about that just in a few minutes. And here you have the link for the working group on widening participation. As I said, we will share the slides in the end. So with that, I hand over to my colleagues, and after that, I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Andre, for that great presentation. There's a lot of information, and I'm sure it'll have stimulated questions. I see there's already 15 questions in Slido, but I would encourage all of you, if you have questions, now's the time to answer them. Put them in Slido, and we'll have the questions and answer session following the next two speakers. So with that, I'd like to give the floor to Boyan again. We'll talk about the NCP and national support in Bulgaria for potential ERC applicants. Boyan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin. I just start to share my screen. I present myself, a National Horizon Europe coordinator. I'll be very short presentation about the motivation of making such this event in the beginning. Together with the Commission, we are very proud to have such this very excellent speakers. So we already hear the 30 minutes from Andre, but we expect the next practical advices from the next speakers. So the motivation of organizing this event already starts from the presentation of Andre, but this is my data from the ministry. So this is our ERC sided grants. The blue is Horizon 2020, and the red one is the Horizon Europe. Before to sign the grants, we have to count the proposals. So we have 31 proposals up to now, and I compare these 31 proposals to the habilitated scientists in Bulgaria, which are 6,000. So we have a huge capacity, and you have to find the way to open and to unlock this capacity for application. To make a mapping to where is RST in all Horizon Europe outside grants, we have just two grants in ERC in the front of more than 480 grants in all Horizon Europe activities. That means you have activities of Bulgarian scientists in pillar 2, but in this area of ERC, they didn't recognize themselves like a potential successful participants. This is two participants are Institute of Catalyst of Bulgaria Academy of Science and Sofia University, two contracts that already have been RS in Europe. A few words about the people who have interested after the dissemination of information about this event. So we have more than 70% from Academy of Science and Higher Education. That's good interested from this point of view. But mostly people have no experience, and they have to to train and to resubmit, like Andre recommend to resubmit the ideas, and the 30% prefer to be in the home. So for future communication with all Horizon Europe network, this is the Viber channel, and this is the newsletter of our communications that disseminate. Most of people receive information from this chat. This is very short from me because usually we have huge events and many information from my side. Now I'll give the floor to Zara. She's a national contact point for ERC. You receive a lot of messages that this is the right person for answering most questions. And just to open her presentation.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you, Martin. So I'm Danica Genova-Geneva. I'm research professor at the Institute of Catalyst in Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, but now I'm here as a national contact point for ERC program. What you can expect from a national contact point, in this case for ERC, you get information dissemination and raising awareness. This will be done with information from dedicated websites of ERC and also from Bulgarian Horizon Europe website organized by the Bulgarian Ministry of Education and Science. All information that you need to successfully apply for ERC grant is really uploaded at these sites. No secret information, but you just have to get familiar with this information and then to start preparing your project. Also, periodically, we are organizing info days, like today. Previous one was 5 years ago. And we are organizing presentations and training seminars during different events, usually university or higher education or scientific institution events. Also, for example, the colleagues from Maria Sklodowska-Curie network usually invite us to present the possibilities to apply for ERC grant. And we have a possibility for direct communication. So you have my contact details and you can reach me easily to consult your ideas and your readiness for applying. If you're active, I have mailing list with potential applicants, and I'm usually sending some additional information just in order not to miss it. And you also can use social media to inform yourself. The second main task of NCPs is during the stage of proposal preparation to support applicants with pre-proposal and full proposal checks, solving some theories, mock interviews, and these two very powerful programs, which are mentoring initiative and visiting fellowship program that I hope we will have soon on board to support additionally our applicants. After successful application at winning ERC grant, you can rely on project management support at the stage of grant agreement preparation, legal, financial, and IP right issues. Sorry. Okay, great. Being a national contact point, I'm a part of National Contact Point network which is really very strong international cooperation to support applicants. And we have very experienced colleagues. We are exchanging ideas, documents, etc. So recently we applied and win this grant. This is a Mercury project. The title of the project is Maximizing Excellence in Research Upskilling NCPs and raising the quality of their support to ERC applicants. Bulgaria was an active applicant in preparation, active partner in preparation of the project, and we are now a beneficiary. So I hope this will increase also our potential to support applicants. The project just started, so I hope within the next first year of this project, we will have some additional tools to support applicants. The aim of the project is to support both national contact points and applicants by improving and harmonizing services of NCPs, increasing capacity of less experienced and widening countries, and for applicants, strengthen national and local support to potential applicants, in particular to those from low-performing countries. Unfortunately, Bulgaria is in this position. Supporting NCP network, the project will be additional possibility for having regular updates on in the NCP community, and also benchmarking of NCP knowledge and services, and for promoting success stories and good practices, which is very important, especially in our case of well-performing country. The support for ERC applicants will be with organizing domain-specific workshops and trainings for ERC individual grant applicants. These trainings will be divided within research domain. Also workshops and trainings for ERC synergy grant applicants, because this is a bit different in submission details, as well as workshops presenting follow-up opportunities for ERC grantees, something very important to go beyond their ERC project by building a sustainable and long-term funding path. And NCP Toolbox, which I hope will be prepared after first year of this project, to develop a comprehensive set of guidelines for applicants that address recurring questions and challenges regarding the submission and evaluation phases in ERC grant application process. I think this last will be very helpful for applicants. Together with this international, let's say, support, we have strong national support thanks to the Ministry of Education and Science. And this is a national scientific program, VIHREN. VIHREN is one of the highest tops in Bulgaria, but this is also an acronym coming from the title of this program, Excellent Research and People for the Development of European Science. What will be financed? Two type of projects, one of them for individual ERC applicants, which in the last 3 years were rated A in the final evaluation, but not funded by ERC. And the second type is for new applicants who will be financed. Action refers to individual research projects, which in this program are so-called leading established researcher and starting grant scheme. Beneficiaries are researchers together with Bulgarian universities or research organizations that are accredited to train doctoral students, a bit different from ERC program, and no portability option is available. The duration of this project is between 36 and 60 months, and the budget depends on project duration, and the maximum amount for 5 years period is respectively 4, 3, or 200,000 Bulgarian leks. The budget will be reduced pro rata temporis basis in the project duration, if the project duration is shorter than 5 years. The program is implemented by Bulgarian National Science Fund, but it's financed through the budget of Ministry of Education and Science. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. You have my presentation with my contact details and all these hyperlinks you can use to have my contacts in this tree, and then to have a lot of information about ERC. I also strongly suggest these videos, ERC classes. It's very powerful tool that you can use to have more information, more details, tips and tricks from previous applicants, how to apply, how to organize your work in application. Thank you for your attention.
Maybe you have to take it for the next section.
Thank you very much, Zara and Boyan. And we now come to the end of the questions and answers. Sorry, Zara, do you have more slides? I see more slides on screen. No. Okay. Then we come to the end of the presentations. We now have about 20 minutes for questions and answers. As I said before, the questions are all being submitted by Slido, including for those of you in the room. And I ask my colleagues to share the first questions on screen. And we'll take them in order, and I'll direct them to the speakers accordingly. So in countries such as Germany, researcher salaries follow national grading systems. In Bulgaria, salary structures are less standardized and often depend on institutional rules or project agreements. How does this affect personal costs and PI salaries in ERC projects? Maybe Zara, I can come to you first of all, because it's the national practice.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So yeah, that's true. We don't have national rules for remuneration of scientists. So every institution have own rules. And this is a kind of problem because Bulgarian scientists are not so strongly motivated because they cannot use this. They're working, let's say the activities are at really high European level, but the remuneration is lower because you don't you reach very easily like the level of remuneration that is eligible for the respective scientific institution. So that's why this could be changed in the future.
Thanks very much, Zara. I mean, from the side of the ERC, maybe Andrea, you can come in here as well, but I would say that, our rules are very simple. You use your institutional practice. So it doesn't need to be a national practice. It's whatever your institution has for applying for grants of this type. You cannot have new salary schemes scales that you invent just for the ERC. But if there are salary scales which are used for applying for international research grants, then those are the ones which can be used. But Andrea, do you have anything else that you'd like to add there?
No, I think that's really the main point. We do, in many of our rules, including the salary grades, we do rely on the practice at the host institution, well, and also, of course, the national laws.
Thank you very much. So if I can move to the second question, which I'll direct to you, Andrea. What concrete achievement is considered strong evidence of excellence by ERC evaluation panels? So do we look at, we've talked about this high impact publication citation matrices being PIs of grants are other indicators of scientific independence. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the KPIs, and also just remind you what you said in your presentation, that the primary evaluation criterion is on the excellence of the idea. Andre.
Yeah, that's correct. So very explicitly, high impact publications can be an indicator, of course, of very successful, very impactful research projects having been successfully achieved. But it's not the only one. So there are some fields, for instance, where the impact factor, the journal of the impact factor, the impact factor of the journal or the citation rate is just much smaller, but it can still be a major leap forward. Let's say like some subfield of mathematics. So it's really kind of hard to give a one size fits all there. But definitely, it's not just the publication record, and especially not the H index. It's really about the scientific track record overall, and this can also include other scientific outputs, of course.
Thanks, Andrea. And I think it's, to be clear, the H index is not used in evaluation. It's not something our evaluators will look at. And as Andrea is saying, other forms of scientific independence, it could be that you have established a new database, or you have established a new community of practice, or you're involved in outreach work, or you have grants involving industry, or what other types of contracts in that respect. So all different types of signs of excellence or independence can be put forward.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, on the question of indicators of scientific independence. So this is, of course, a more pronounced question or issue for the more junior researchers. So especially for starting grant, it will be relevant. One indicator is, so it's really a lot about the independence from the PhD supervisor. So one indicator that we give in the information for applicants, for instance, is you should have at least one paper without your PhD supervisor after your PhD. So that would be, the kind of minimum. But really, the panel would like to see some independence. 2 years after your PhD, you're already in your first, maybe even second postdoc. And you do need to be able to provide evidence that your work is really your own and not based mostly on your PhD supervisors.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Very clear. So if I move to the next question, which we get asked a lot, we seem to be just getting some feedback from the room. I don't know if there's possibility to mute the room in a way that you can still hear us. There's a question which we often get asked. Do I need to already be employed by a Bulgarian research institution to apply? Or is it enough to have an agreement with one as a host institution? Andre.
Yes, that's a very clear no. You do not need to be employed by the Bulgarian host institution. You just need to have an agreement evidenced by the host institution letter of commitment that you need to upload into the funding and tenders portal as one of the appendices.
And if you are, if you're not currently employed by an institution, and you need assistance in getting this agreement with the host institution, this is something which perhaps the national contact points would be able to direct you to the correct people in the host institutions to help you facilitate that. And so, as always, as we said before, the national contact points need to be, your direct, you're kind of your best friends in putting these applications together. You're local sources of advice and guidance, and they can assist in that respect as well. The next question I think is also for you, Andre. In a previous evaluation, I received comment the PI's publication record is weak. They talk about my current H index is 17. What are the expectations regarding publication impact and citation metrics for applicants? To what extent do these vary across different scientific fields and panels? Now, you've answered this already to some extent in your previous answer, but there are additional things which you'd like to add, Andre.
Yes, so of course, again, to reiterate, the guidance is that we do not use, or we instruct the panels not to use citation metrics, especially on the H index, as a proxy for evaluating the PI. The scientific track record is being looked at more holistically. So the statement publication record is weak is a bit blunt. Of course, they do also put it into the context of where you are in your research career. So publication record is, of course, it's not completely negligible as a factor, but it is also measured against your level of seniority.
Thank you. Then the next question is in a similar vein. To apply for a starting grant, and you've touched on this already, Andre, should I have publications, research rates, and collaborations with other PIs than my PhD supervisor? And if my idea is relevant with my experience in general, but I've never worked on this, would this be a problem?
Yeah, I already went into the question of the independence from the PhD supervisor. Like I said, the indicator, but not necessity, but a good indicator is at least one publication without your PhD supervisor. The more independence you can demonstrate, it doesn't only have to be by publications, maybe other works that, some data sets or patents or whatever it may be, anything that is independent of your research supervisor, you can also use there. So if your idea is relevant with your expertise in general, but never worked on this, so like I explained, the panel will very specifically look at the background of the PI as it relates to the project suggested. So if you have a great idea for something, but the panel has doubts that you have the expertise to carry it out, it will reflect negatively on your application, yes. If you do have the expertise evidenced by, well, whatever means you can find, if you can convince the panel, then if you haven't worked on this, well, it really depends on what you mean that you have the expertise but have never worked on this. But to me, it sounds like the way it's phrased, it sounds like it would probably be looked at critically by the panel.
I mean, I think this is something which is common for starting grantees, of course, that they may be wanting to branch out in a new direction. And I think if it's a completely new, different field, then perhaps you'll need to provide some evidence that your track record is relevant. If it's branching out in the same overall field, but in a slightly different area, then I think this will be seen normal for starting grants. And indeed, if your project is excellent and really excites the panel, and you're taken through to the second step of the evaluation, you could expect that you may get asked some questions about this on the interview as well. So I think this is something which is quite normal for starting grantees. But it could be that you need to make a new direction from your PhD supervisor. This is normal. If it's in a completely different field, I don't know if you're a chemist and you want to work in more of a project which is related to engineering, then you perhaps need to find something which is shows that you have the expertise to put in place that project. The next question, Andre, is also for you, but it's one which perhaps I will answer because it talks about the criterion capacity of the host to discriminates against the widening countries. It must be removed. I'd like to underline that we have no evaluation of the host institution in ERC applications. So the host institution is not evaluated. It's not an evaluation criterion. Andre talked about the portability of grants. And for example, with starting grants, we see that it's roughly 15 to 20% of starting grantees change their host institution on day 0 of the grant. And this is a simple indication of why we do not evaluate the host institution, because simply they start in a different host institution to the one they applied with. And this is a key part of the portability that we talked about. So we do not evaluate the host institution. But Andre, I see you want to add something here.
Yeah, maybe to add, I do believe I recognize the capacity of the host from the Marie Curie application, but it is not part of the ERC application. And I would agree if that is a criterion to select a project. If it was, then of course it would be very unfair to countries with a weaker structural profile in terms of research. But it is not part of the ERC criterion.
And indeed, you heard this directly from our president at the outset, where she said it's open to researchers from anywhere in the world, irrespective of where you are currently and where you're going to work. We do not evaluate the host institution. So the next question, probably also to you again, Andre, is how many collaborators is it advisable to have for a starting or a consolidated grant? So maybe you want to talk about the individual nature of our grants.
Yes, so it really depends a little bit on what is meant by this. So in terms of collaborators on the project, the most important point is really that the project has to be your own. It cannot rely on any other PIs. It is your project and yours alone. So that is for just the project itself and for the evaluation. Of course, having a strong collaborative network might be necessary for some project. For some projects, it might be less necessary. So again, it depends a little bit on the research context that you're moving in. I mean, some research fields are really pen and paper, very individual. Then a large research network might not be expected. Some very experimental collaborative projects might rely on a stronger network. But again, the project has to be yours. So there is no concrete number I could give for the number of collaborators here.
No, and I think you agree. There's no concrete number, but I think when we look at the grants which we award, our grants are individual grants. They're targeted around a single principal investigator, and the vast majority of our grants which we award are a single investigator grant, not involving directly collaborators. Now, as Andrew said, depending on your area of research, you may need to involve collaborators. That's your choice, but it's not a criterion, and it doesn't strengthen or doesn't weaken your application depending on whether you have collaborators or not. It just needs to be specific to the research area that you're looking at. So, Andrew, one of the things which people always get confused about, and I think we need to explain again, is the panels and domains. We always talk about the fact that we are completely bottom up and we have no priorities. And then we show a list of panels which make it look like they're priorities. And this is sometimes a little difficult to understand. So perhaps you can explain what the panels and the domains are and how they're put in place, please.
Yes. So the question, I assume the person who asked the questions is aware that there are 3 domains. So there's physical sciences and engineering, life sciences, and social sciences and humanities. So those are 3 domains, and there are roughly 10 panels in each of those domains. So that's how we arrive at 28 panels. And like I said, you can look those up along with the keywords in the information for applicants. So do those change every year? No. The Scientific Council puts a lot of thought and effort into coming up with an evaluation structure that is, independent from short-term developments and really reflects the scientific community a little bit more in a more stable manner. So that being said, of course, research does develop, and occasionally there will be new panels will be created, keywords will be changed, but these are really minor changes compared to the overall structure of the domains and the panels.
Thank you very much, Andre. Zara and Boyan, I think the questions are next for you. You talked about the fact that Bulgaria may be looking to introduce visiting fellowship programs and mentoring initiatives. These are national programs which help people prepare a winning application. Zara and Boyan, I don't know if you would like to answer these questions, how to apply for a visiting fellowship program and how to apply for the mentoring initiative.
Yeah, we prepared the few slides about these questions that are coming from the registration form, but we propose now to take a break and to do it in a second QA session.
Just to answer this question that you're asking. So as I already mentioned, unfortunately, visiting fellowship program and ERC mentoring initiative are not available tools for Bulgarian applicants. So I hope we will have some possibility to apply at the next call to be approved by ERC and to have this really very powerful tools for supporting applicants.
Okay, thank you very much. And Boyan, I understand you'll also want to come back to these in the session after the break. I think we have about 5 minutes before the formally scheduled break. And so if possible, we still have 16 questions. I'd like to get through as many of them as possible. So Elena, if you could remove these top 2, we'll come back to them later. We go to the next one, which is relating to researchers with dual affiliations and time commitments. So imagine a researcher with a dual affiliation at an academic institution and an R&D startup. What are our ERC requirements regarding minimum time commitment of the host institution? Can equipment, hardware purchased through ERC grant be used at the SME Smart startup if it supports the research?
So the time commitment is really to the project and less related concretely to where the time is being committed, as long as it's on the project. So organizations can be added as beneficiaries or associated partners. There are different ways of handling this. This is really something that has to be discussed in detail with the granting department in the in the grant agreement stage. But it is definitely possible. The main thing is that you need to dedicate enough time onto on the grant. The second question on equipment and hardware purchased. So it depends what kind of equipment. So usually the normal practice is that you cannot buy equipment fully. You cannot dedicate the full cost of an equipment, but it has to be depreciated over the lifetime. There are exceptions possible to it, but in the end, what's important is that the instrument has to be dedicated to the project and it has to be depreciated. And if it's usable longer than the lifetime, accordingly, the ERC will not be able to pay for the full amount of the costs. But these are also questions that should be clarified during the grant agreement stage.
Thank you, Andre. And Boyan, apologies, I misread my agenda. I see that you're entirely right. It was the time for the break. And so I'm not fulfilling my role as a chair particularly well. The questions which are remaining, we still have 13. We'll come back to them again in the second questions and answer session. So with that, I suggest that we come back, Boyan, if that is okay for you, at 11:05 Brussels time. So we have the 10-minute break. And so for those of you online, come back at 11:05. Those of you in the room, it gives you time to stretch your legs and take a break. So thank you very much. We'll come back to these questions after the break. So we now move to the second part of our seminar. There'll be a separate questions and answer session for this at the end of the presentation. There are still some questions which we were unable to answer from the first round, and we will answer those again at the end of the session should we not be able to get through all of those. Now, this session is to hear practical advice and guidance from Bulgarian researchers who've been involved in the ERC system, either as a panel member evaluating proposals or as grantees themselves. So first of all, I'm delighted to give the floor to Professor Milan Bogdanovic, who's a professor of chemistry at the University of Sofia and a former panel member for the ERC. So I understand, Milan, you're in the room.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And I'll hand over to you. And we see something on screen yet, but I'm not sure if your presentation has fully started yet.
Yes, this is my presentation. This is the circle of the human knowledge. So this is the instead of introduction, I will share my view. What is ERC? So anyway, the title is Hints and Tips for Successful ERC application. We heard a lot of such things from Andre, but I will try to also different perspective from the panel member. Okay, I'm professor in organic chemistry, working in Sorbia University, and Pokrinski, and I had the privilege to be a panel member for 8 years in the starting round panel. In P5, this is related to the synthetic chemistry. So about the ERC. My view is like that. So if we imagine that this is the circle of human knowledge, when we appear on the map, when we are born, so we make a spot and we are inside this knowledge. So we start from the kindergarten. This is the blue dot. After that, we are going through the secondary school, the green thing. So we extend and expand our knowledge. After that, we go to the gymnasium. After that, in the university. So with the time, we are going narrow and narrow with our knowledge. And finally, after the master degree in the university, we are supposed to touch the border of the human knowledge, because this university education is defined by the human knowledge that we have at this moment. So if we focus on this point here, we can make small push on the border, and this is called PhD. So we stand on the current knowledge, so and we try to push the boundaries and to go beyond. So this is a PhD. Of course, if I'm a PhD student, I will have a different perspective, and I will see that this is the biggest thing in my life till this moment. But if I put a different perspective, this is a very small step regarding the human knowledge. But anyway, if we collect all the PhD students all over the world, then we can see that each and every year we have small pushes from different sides, and then this way we expand the human knowledge. Okay, and then the ERC comes. So what ERC is beyond the border. So this is the idea, not inside. This is not incremental science. This is beyond the border. So if you want, or if you believe that you have ideas, you should go beyond the current knowledge. So the three keywords, if I can describe one ERC proposal, this is groundbreaking, high risk, high gain, and solving important challenges. As I thought, Andre gave very good representation of the application procedure and gave a lot of hints. I will share, I will tell some different points, I will do different points. So there are five scales. There is a scale for examination, with puts outstanding, excellent, very good, good, and non-competitive. And these five criteria apply for the project and for the PI. I'm not sure if this is still the same. Maybe Andre can say after that, but to my knowledge, the ERC program is the only one which gave so high impact on the PI. So it's maybe about 50%. So the project is very important, and at the first step, the project is mainly gives the scores, but at the end, the PI needs again. So a lot of people are disappointed, me as well, when I applied. So I was scored as non-competitive. Okay, at that time of my career, maybe I was at the top 3 in Bulgaria, maybe in the 75th percentile in Europe, but this is not enough to win this really competitive goal. Okay, so you should be outstanding, not excellent, outstanding, because from 150 projects, maybe 8 to 10 are funded. So that means the success rate is 8 to 10%. And if you are not outstanding, then the chances are lower and lower and lower. So there is step 1, step 2, and please believe that your project is nor underestimated, neither overestimated. The decision is taken together by the whole panel. There is no one reviewer that gives scores to you and who is making the decision. The reviewers, they should have answers to these questions. All these questions, they are looking for these for the answers in order to fight for your project. Because normally we spend 2 to 3 weeks evaluating projects. This is very hard work, believe me. And after that, we are closed in one room for 1 week from 8 from the morning till the 8 of the evening, and we are fighting each other for your projects. So we have to be armored to fight for something. If there is nothing, then we cannot fight. If you think about the panel, because these things are happening behind the door. the panels consist of dozens or more experts. In my case, we were 16. So 16 persons, well known, they are experts in different fields. In the synthetic chemistry panel, these are organic chemists, inorganic chemists, biologists, theoretical chemists, and so on and so forth. So that means at step one, each reviewer has to evaluate between 30 and 40 projects. And that is why all these people, they are evaluate them as a generalist. So they are not going in details in the first part. They evaluate the idea. So it was stressed that the idea is the most important thing in your project. So imagine that for 2 weeks we are closed and reading. That means that each of these panel members will have projects in the field of his expertise. Sure. So be sure that you are evaluated by expert in your field. This is sure. So each project is evaluated by 3 to 4 experts, and after that, when we meet, there is a one lead reviewer who will present the project in front of the others, and then the others are starting to ask questions the lead reviewer about your project. So he's as an example. So, and if he has or she has no answers on the question, he say, okay, I don't know, like a student on the exam. And then the others say, okay, minus for this project, minus for this project. So we discuss project after project, and as we saw, the questions are moving regarding the likes they receive. This is the same picture with the projects. So one project maybe we have at the end A, B, C, but in the room, each panel make his own rules. So that means we can put AA plus, AA, or AA minus, or AD plus plus, or something like that. So we arrange the project, and this arrangement is very dynamic. So that means at the first day it could be some way, but if somebody is fighting very strong for one project, then at the end this project can go down, and after 3 days it can go again up, and so on and so forth. And what the panelists are looking, novelty, impact for the society, and this should be clearly shown, and it should be really visible. Not to the proposal should be written in a way that the panel members not to assume what is written. They should follow the logic very easy. If you write the project in a way that you may engage or impress the 3 or at least 2 of the 4 reviewers of your project as step 1, then your chances are very high, because not only one will fight for you, they are a group, and even that the other 14 or 20 or 12, they are against somehow. If one guy likes your project, he will fight for him, but for it, this is sure. So reviewers need a reason to support your project. This is the take-home message that you have to keep in mind all the time. So you have to give answers to all questions. What does it mean? If you are doing a review for an article, then with the time you modify yourself to be self-critical, and to do the things what you are asking from the other people. So if you imagine that you are a reviewer, then you will ask these questions in advance, and then you will try to put answers in the project, and in this way you will help the reviewers. Highlight the key parts, So as I told you, we read 30, 40 proposals that you have to agree that is very difficult. It is written 5 pages, but if it's written in 10, then these 5 pages are maybe 20 or something like that. So if you have 40 projects, 20 pages, then it's really a lot. So from time to time you are reading very fast, and the applicant should give hints to the reviewer what to read, where to find it, and yes, okay. Underline the novelty, the high risk, and the high gain, and the project must be clear and self-explanatory. So, of course, check the English because it's very, how to say, bad if somebody see technical errors, other errors, you say, okay, this is not this person that I cannot trust. You say, okay, I will save the world, but I have technical errors. Sorry, this is not the way. Use all the space. So you have 7 pages or 5 pages, use all of them. If you have in the last calls, the space was 15 pages, and ERC project with 7. So that means that somebody has nothing to tell. The idea is if you go for ERC application, you should be able to open the window and to scream what you like to do. So, and if you put it in 2 pages, this is not real. Okay, picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay, these are really general hints. Put diagrams, make them self-explanatory. Pay attention more sizing. Keep in mind that most of the people are with glasses, so make the size matter in this case. So this is also important. Okay, these are again regarding the PI. Clearly highlight your achievements. So the people don't know you. Also, if you are a PhD student, you have to say in the starting round, okay, you have 5, 10 publications, the people don't know you. So you should clearly present your achievements. Mention overseas experience. Of course, if you are working only on one place, then you are supposed not to be broad-minded, I think. You have no you know, like collaboration, you don't know different cultures. So this is very important because, you know, as a scientist, if you work with different people on different topics, you become stronger and stronger with the time. So this is really important, although it's not eligible criteria. Okay, I will say like that. If you have one project and if you put in one panel or in the panel on the next year, you will be scored differently because different people examine your proposal. So you have to impress the panel members or at least 2 or 3 people from the panel. Describe any leadership you have, include prices, awards. This was told by Andre. And the most important thing is support your clients with facts and be honest and truthful. Okay, don't lie. This can be found very easy. What wasn't mentioned, make a website. On this website, you can put some your information about your research projects, research group, and so on. So the website increase your visibility and say, okay, I'm on the map. So you can see I'm open. I put the whole information for me, and it is the same. So regarding the interview, on the second step, if you go for step 2 and you are invited for the interview, again you have 3 to 4 internal reviewers and pay attention maybe 4 to 8 external reviews. So sometimes there are projects that have been evaluated by 12 reviews or 15 reviews, believe me. So that means if the experts in the panel, maybe some of you can say, okay, they are not really experts. We don't know how what their expertise is. Believe me that in the second step, these external reviewers, they are really experts in your field, because these are the guys who are working at that moment on topics that are very close to your topic. And of course, for the interview, their comments are regarded. So the lead reviewer, in this case, his work is to summarize the whole reviews and again what to fight for your project. Yes. So and if you don't defend the project properly, then the reviewer is kaput. Okay. So sometimes it depends on the panel. Of course, you can have 5-minute presentation, 10 or 8. It depends. Each time we decide. But imagine if you cannot say something for 3 minutes, you cannot say for 35 minutes. It's clear, or for 3 hours. It's the rule of another things. Okay, but then you have 5 or 10 minutes presentation, and after that you have Q&A session, and then you stand before 16 persons that are looking like that, and or they are looking like that, and what you have to do, you must to attract their attention, because for 1 week we have 45 interviews. And okay, oh, this is the second. No, this is not. I'm playing a bit, not it. But you have to make difference from the others, and you have to attract their attention and to keep their attention for these 5 or 10 minutes. And after that, all the people are open to ask you questions. So you have 20 or 25 minutes to answer questions. And what I can give as a hint, answer shortly and directly, and as much, because sometimes, you know, if you have 3 minutes to answer questions, and if you have 1 question, then if you answer 4 minutes, then you can reduce the number of the other questions. But this is not the case. You should try to answer as much questions as possible, because if one project is really outstanding or excellent, then the reviewers, they are happy to ask questions, and they are happy that they have a person that can answer them. So, and this is very strange, but this is the reality. This is not anymore a question and answer session. This is like a conversation between equal persons. So try to convince them, try to answer as much questions as possible, and yes. Make open and to pay attention. Yes. These thank you slides and presenting titles and things, this is not necessary, because the panel knows very well who are you, what you are going to present, and you don't need to lose 1 minute of these 5 minutes to present you the second time. Okay, and I think I'm at the end. Take-home message. The quality of your research and your previous achievement must be outstanding, and you should put them in this position. You should explain them, and to, if this is the true approach, well, you should show. Assist your proposal by making it easy for reviewers to understand. This is here. Engage with the proposal and impress the entire panel. Okay, first trying the 4 people who are reviewers, and then entire panel, and believe that your proposal is the best. So You have to prove that you're the right person at the right time with the right proposal in the right institution to do the job. And you have to convince the panel that there is no other person to do this job. You are the one. So, and ensure reviewers notice and remember both your project proposal and its you. I told you, for 8 years, I had participated in many interviews, but I still remember some people that really made the things the best. Okay, you can read as well all the things, and finally, thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Milan, for that personal insight of how things happen in the evaluation. I'm sure there'll be questions coming from your presentation and the previous presentations this morning. We'll use the same Slido code. As you'll see, we have put aside the questions from the first session so that we can give priority to new questions coming through, but we'll ensure that all questions which have been posed are answered either now or in writing subsequently. So I'd now like to turn to testimonials from 3 ERC grantees. And the first is Anelia Kasabova, who's from the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, from the Institute of Ethnology and Folklore Studies with the Ethnographic Museum. So Anelia, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation and for the possibility to share my experience. Right at the beginning, I do not think that I'm so outstanding that nobody else could do my work. Actually, my presentation and my part is to encourage everybody to apply. Of course, scouts. It's a highly competitive procedure, and it's really about science. So my part, I listed here, it's not the track record, that it's not supposed to be read. It's in a font size that it's impossible to be read, but it's only to point out that it's my first ERC application. It was my first application, and it's my first ERC grant. Most probably the last one because also of my age. It was in a way by accident. It was not planned by me. It was not my initiative. It was by serendipity maybe, but I was contacted by a researcher at that time working at the University of Kent, and she, Dr. Veronica Stoyanova, introduced me to other colleagues. And then it developed its own logic, its own path. It came the initiative to prepare ERC grant. I didn't have the idea for ERC application, but I joined this initiative driven by curiosity and by the view to work of the other colleagues too. It was for me an interesting experience to join this team and to be part of this initiative with no hopes on success. Only the process per se is a enrichment. So my advice: prepare, think about possible possibilities, but also embrace changes.
Well, that's good.
Some technical issues, they can appear also in your presentation for the ERC panel, so be aware and be prepared to improvise. But I need the first slide. So why I'm beginning with the post-institution? Post-institution is not evaluated, it's not the main criterion we heard it. I'm at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences at the Institute of Technology and Folklore Studies with Ethnographic Museum. I had the support of my post-institution, but the post-institution is essential also because it can easing your application process, and it's essential for the implementation of the project, the cost institution. We had a very strong cost institution, the cost institution of Volker Hess. He is director of the Institute of History of Medicine and Ethics in Medicine at Charité Medical School in Berlin. You see also the other three partners. We are a synergy grant of 4 PIs. From the left to the right, Volker Hess, Juri Chando, Ulf Schmidt, and me. Volker Hess managed, thanks to his position and thanks to Charité Berlin, to organize several meetings in person. For our synergy grant, it's essential to have such meetings because, as I told, I was introduced to the colleagues, but we didn't have collaboration in advance. And Charité Berlin organized also a mock interview, a very serious one, with former panel members, with grantees, successful grantees. Charité is a powerful, large institution with a lot of successful and ongoing projects, and it plays a role. It's still my partner in regards of budget questions that are very, very important, administrative issues. So the cost institution matters. Interdisciplinarity is not a strict requirement, we heard about it, but it's an advantage, especially in the humanities and in the social sciences, as there are different perspectives. As you can see from the graphic, we are coming from different specific disciplines: history of science, history of ethics, legal studies, me, anthropology, and sociology. Despite that the borders between the scientific disciplines, especially in humanities and social sciences, are blurring, but nevertheless there are specifics and approaches and even in terminology. So it's an effort to collaborate on a joint project. And what counts the most is, of course, the research idea. I think we as scholars, as scientists, have to be excited by the topics we are working on. And if we manage to make this excitement evident, it will become contagious to others too. Our idea was to go beyond the East-West divide, to overcome the borders between the capitalist West and the socialist camp, in a way, to overcome also national boundaries, to overcome the borders within different national states by accent on the common history of post-war Europe through the lens of medicine. Medicine is used as an analytical lens, and but we are not downplaying the essential differences in economics, politics, ideology, and everyday life. We are combining these perspectives to accentuate on the entangled history, not only even of Europe, but on the global world. And I think this has a great potential to meet the needs and the challenges of today's time, with these hard dividing lines between different groups, charities, parts of the world. The importance of the budget. We are, I somehow missed to show that we are a balanced team, and that's also good for synergy grant. It's the synergy grants are for 2 to 4 researchers, and it's good to keep in eye the balance of the team. We are balanced as gender, we are balanced as states, 2 from Western Europe, 2 from Central and Eastern Europe. It was meant that the University of Ghent is one of the cost institutions, but the colleague moved from the University of Kent to the University of Hamburg. Once again, these grants are portable. And now we are from 3 states, Germany, 2 host institutions. The Central European University moved from Budapest to Vienna, but Germany is stable and I'm stable. The Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. We are balanced also in this terms. And the team, the local teams were balanced also intergenerational. It was not seen on the picture. The PIs, we belong to one and the same generations, but we could attract PhD students, senior researchers, postdoc fellows, and PhD students. And this, thanks to the grant we received from the ERC. So the budget is from essential importance. And to prepare a balanced budget is a great task. You have to need to know the European Commission's financial rules, and at that time Horizon 2020, now Horizon Europe framework. You have to be familiar with the national legislation, and you have also to know the institutional regulations of the cost institution. That's why I'm once again pointing to the important role of the cost institution, of the accounting and administrative departments. They can support you to prepare a balanced budget and can support you during the implementation of the project, in which phase I am now, to avoid administrative or financial issues. It's also very important. And once again, I have the support also of Charité, because for the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences is the first project of this kind. It was actually the first project for Bulgaria, and we are also the host institution accumulating knowledge now with this project, but there are issues to be concerned. And in my opinion, what the ministry can do is to support host institutions in this regard, administrative and accounting offices and departments. To have a balanced budget is a main prerequisite to define the scope of your project. So it's important to have it in advance. The next last slides are more practical, but you have heard it. Consider the evaluators when you are writing, both inside and outside of your specific discipline. Accessible, engaging, and compelling text is good to be prepared without mistakes, very condensed, preempt and address potential questions or doubts. What we have done, we sent part B and part B1 and part B2 to colleagues of us to receive possible questions, to be prepared for interview and for the evaluators. And once again, the post institution Charité organized a very serious long interview, so it was a great advantage for us. The preparation process, do not underestimate it. It takes time. It does not mean you have to prepare 3 to 4 to 5 years, but some months to spend on it, it's good in advance. And don't submit it in the last minute. We follow this advice that we heard by Martin. We submitted it, as far as I remember, 2 weeks before the deadline, to have the possibility eventually to resubmit. And practice the interview. You have strict timeline. We had at that time 2018. Yes, 2018 was the interview. We had 15 minutes, but we are a group of 4 to present, but we had also a big screen behind us counting each second. So we had to keep in respective minutes, and then the last part is for questions and answers. And we had in advance this recommendation, which I also give to you. The more questions you can answer, the best. So short, condensed, clear answers. And you have to fill in a proposal a section high risk, high gain. Preparing a proposal and working on a proposal is only a high gain. You do not risk anything at all. You can only expand your knowledge, you can only expand your networks, you can gain new experiences, and these experiences are only positive. So enjoy the process of preparation, even though not thinking about the result of this project. The process, as said, is enrichment. And so don't worry, be happy. And I'm using this last slide of thank you to thank to the ERC for this unique possibility for research. And to thank you all, to thank all
And thank you from our side as well, Professor Kesabova, and for that very interesting insight in your experience in obtaining a Synergy grant. I can now pass the floor to Professor Petya Krasteva from the CNRS in France. Boyan, is Professor Krasteva online or in the room?
Ja.
One.
Heeft ze heel hard. Scheppen je al, maar dit is fijn.
Да. Ние трябва да момента.
She is online. You may need to unmute.
Hello?
Hi, we can now hear you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
because I was muted and I couldn't unmute myself. And I cannot even start my video also because it's also disabled by the host. So if you can just
We'll ask our colleagues in Sofia to
give
disable
me
that.
authorizations because I don't have the hand. And I'm going to try to share my screen now because also I didn't have the permission. No, I cannot start.
Okay, but I will make you a co-host so you can have me as click. So now.
Now you can do it.
So now it should work, Petya.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your patience.
Yeah, I'll just hold on because I have to make a presenter view. Okay. So, hi everyone, and thanks for, you can hear me well now?
We do indeed, yes.
Okay, so thanks for this invitation. So just briefly to introduce myself, I'm a researcher at the French National Research Network. This is the CNRS. It's a bit like the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. So I work in Bordeaux. And I actually have 2 grants from the ERC. I had a starting grant on the 2017 call code biometrics, and then 2000 on the 2023 call I got a consolidator grant also from the ERC, and both of these grants are kind of in line with our main topic of research in my lab, which is basically bacterial bioinformation. So I'm a structural biologist. I use a variety of methods, but I do study grants are in line with this topic. So basically, I'll just share a few kind of tips and impressions from my grant application process. So I think what is very important.
Petya, we've lost your sound, unfortunately. I don't know if you can adjust your microphone. Petya, we don't hear you, unfortunately. Katja, unfortunately, we don't hear you. Perhaps we will come back to you, and once we've looked at...
Yeah.
Now we hear you again.
Yeah, but I hear you quite badly. There is some interference. Okay, let's try again. So, hello? Yeah.
Now we
So
seem to hear you.
basically, what is important is kind of choose the right year to apply. Basically, if you're eligible, and what is the likely composition of the panel, of the experts on the panel, and also to account for potential failure. So usually the panel composition, part of the panel composition is from the call, which is 2 years before, so not the year before you call, but 1 more year earlier. And then you can have like kind of an idea who's on the panel and what the composition is and what is kind of the interests of these people on the panel. And also the other important thing is to account for potential failure. So what happened in my case, kind of the ERC starting, I got it from the get-go, but on the ERC consolidator call, I had I was ranked A on the step 1, which means I can go to the interview. And then I had a very disastrous interview. And I was still ranked A, but and was recommended for funding, but my project was actually placed on the reserve list. So of course you get these results kind of a couple of weeks before the deadline for the next year's call. So I could kind of modify my proposal a little bit, taking into account the comments from 2023. And I resubmitted for 2024. And actually, I thought my proposal was polished, more optimized. I had also several new publications. However, I was ranked B at the first step, which means that whoever handled my proposal was not at all impressed by it, or not enough to be more impressed than more than half of the candidates that would go to the second step of evaluation. And this was very kind of catastrophic in a way, because this made me not eligible for the year for the next call in 2025. So in hindsight, what I would have done is to basically skip the 2024 call and resubmit in 2025, where the panel already kind of, at least part of the panel is already familiar with my research, with my proposal. They have recommended my project for funding, and this can help with the future evaluation. And then in the end, it was all well, because after 7 months, I actually got contacted by the ERC for grant preparation, and my project was pulled from the reserve list. And I'm now, it's active in the lab. I'm now using it as the main funding source for our research. So, and then kind of this was already touched upon. What I would recommend is apply. The work is never in vain, because it's a massive proposal that you write, that even if you don't get the ERC, you can use in other calls like Human Frontiers, you can use in national calls and so on. Yeah, basically it enriches you as an applicant, as a researcher. Then the next step is like, again, what was discussed is to convince the panel. So the panel experts, they handle kind of, they have to evaluate apples versus oranges, meaning the projects are very different. The experts are from very different fields, very different expertise. But you need the people that will evaluate in more detail your proposal to fight for your, to defend your project, and even to fight for it. And then what is important is that no one will like your proposal best, and maybe there will be some people that will not like your proposal at all. But that's okay, as soon as you manage to convince the majority of evaluators that your research is worth funding. And then you have to kind of highlight your excellence as a candidate, which, even though now it's kind of supposedly with less of a weight, I don't believe that evaluators change their mindset to not look at the candidate and their career track record and their excellence. Of course, the project is key, and also the means. So this means, by this I mean the budget, how we're going to structure it, The hosting institution, I believe, is important. Maybe it's not evaluated directly in terms of what the reviewers will check in terms of boxes, but in terms of more like what atmosphere for the success of the project it will provide. And the infrastructure, of course, which is in technical fields like mine, is absolutely crucial for the success of the proposal. So in terms of the candidates, what can help? Of course, people in science like international mobility, multidisciplinary training. Some people really like focused career paths, like you are born a professor. Then publication record is important, even though it's not stressed upon and reviewers are explicitly kind of urged to not look at impact factors and so on. I think reviewers are human and they don't change their mindset that easily. Coming from top labs can help, not only because of the prestige of your former PI, but also because of the collaboration and supervision opportunities that these labs provide, and also possibility to take working projects. So if you have a project that, a big lab that has many projects, a postdoc can easily negotiate to take part of the research for their new lab. And this can help, even though it can also hurt, because if you stay too much in your own lane, it might be counterproductive. And then I think networking is very important. So use your network, go to conferences and make contacts, because and make impressions in your career to people that are abroad, because you never know who's going to be on your panel and who's going to be your reviewer. So these professional contacts are important. And I also believe there is like an aspect of personality traits. Some people have more success at the interview stage by the way they behave and the way they can react, and also like kind of, and this could be trained. So in my case, I had the international mobility, I had the multidisciplinary training. My career path was a bit of a mess, so I did a bachelor's and master's in Sofia University, then I did a PhD in Cornell in the US, and then I quit academia and I went and worked as an editor in Nature Methods in New York. And then I moved back to Europe for family reasons, and I went back to academia and did a postdoc of 4.5 years, and I had 2 kids in the meantime. And then I became a group leader. One thing led to another. But I had very little networking because I was always busy with kids and so on, and I had this interruption in my academic path. I didn't come from top labs. I did both my PhD postdoc with assistant professors. But in the end, I could kind of make it seem as if it was all planned. And I also believe I'm kind of confident. So in my case, I believe that was a plus. So in terms of the projects, again, the reviewers, they compare apples versus oranges. But my impression as kind of sitting on different committees and also being an editor and having kind of people approach me to give them advice on their ERC proposals is that 30 to 40% of the projects are kind of objectively bad. I mean, they're premature, they're not extensive enough. In some cases, they're what are they thinking kind of projects. But those are easy to objectively pick and discard. The question is, how do you make it in the top 15% to make it work? So preliminary data can help, and because also it shows feasibility. Feasibility can be supported by your track record, meaning you have the necessary discipline. You have transferable skills also, especially if you want to start some new axis of research or establish a new methodology, which was the case in my starting grant. And you have to have it's good to have expertise in orthogonal approaches. Okay, if you cannot do it this way, can you do it another way? Of course, the project has to be novel. It has to, as was already said, it has to push the frontiers of knowledge, and it has to be ambitious. And however, I think it's okay sometimes for the projects to be not that novel. I mean, the results have to be novel, but the projects are not necessarily to be completely out of the box, and it's okay for them to be too ambitious. So that said, because I had this as a criticism, but it was actually a compliment in my proposals that my projects are too ambitious, but I think that's actually what made them breakthrough. So that's it. You have to plan something like 20-25 years of research. What I see very often from people that are especially starting grant candidates that approach me to give them feedback and advice and so on, is that it's a bit of an extended postdoctoral fellowship proposal. But this is like your time, which is usually more than 50, 60, 70% that you're going to dedicate on the grant. And then you have something like 10 years of PhD student, 10 years of postdoc, I mean, depending on how much money the budget will allow for. And then you have some satellite staff in the lab that is going to contribute if you're lucky. So basically, this is a lot of research that you have to input in your proposal. So this is not a kind of a single person research. This is really have to account for a lot of grounds to be covered. And you have to have like guaranteed gain, even if it's not, high risk, high gain, whatever. But if you structure your proposal in a way that you're gonna succeed no matter what goes wrong, then I think you have a good chance. So to me, it's very important to account for potential pitfalls in the methods you use, in the hypothesis you make, in anything that you can think of. And what would be your fallback solution? Okay, if it doesn't work this way, can we make it work another way? If we're wrong on this part, can we find another explanation and prove that we are wrong, but why we're wrong? Of course, budget and resource allocation is important, even though what I really appreciated in the ERC is that the direct costs are flexible. So my Gantt, is it Gantt chart or whatever, like these things of how we're going to attribute the salaries and work projects that you always put in your grant proposal, like my actual Gantt chart has nothing to do with the proposal Gantt chart, so the budget is flexible and you can just adapt the way the research takes you. And then finally, it's good to get feedback, but I would advise it to get it if you prepare early. And then if you prepare late, don't bother, because then you get disconcerted and start to kind of mess up your proposal. And also don't lose yourself, because sometimes you get feedback and it doesn't necessarily match your way of thinking and doing science, and then you cannot defend what you're actually gonna adopt as an advice. So as again, we work on bacterial biofilm formation. So this is basically how bacteria form multicellular communities that are highly resistant, persistent. It has implications in different stages of bacterial infections in pathogens, but it's also kind of interesting in terms of production of extracellular matrix components, such as sustainable biopolymers and so on. So both grants were related on this. First grant was called Biomatrix, from biofilm extracellular matrix, and the second one is called BACFilm, and this vectors of bacterial biofilms. So that said, kind of find a nice acronym for your project that is catchy. It can help. And the other thing that I want to stress is that in my case, kind of, especially for the consolidated grant, like nothing was really novel as an idea. Like we want to study certain systems, certain process. The methods that we're going to use are kind of more or less, I mean, they're state of the art, but they're more or less standard if you have access to an expertise of the technologies. So basically, the novelties was really what was going to come from the results, but the concept or the methodology was not that important. And also it was okay to basically continue in the same lane, because some people apply for a consolidated grant and they think they have to completely restructure their research program for their lab entirely to come up with something completely new, completely out of the box. And I don't think that is necessary. At least it wasn't necessary in my case. Of course, you have to kind of expand your toolkit, show your expertise, convince the panel that you have both the technical kind of resources and of course expertise and possibility to improvise also during the proposal. But you don't have to really kind of come up with something completely new. It has to be new in terms of potential impact and results, and it has to be a balance between the novelty and the ambition. So it's okay to be ambitious. And it's also important to show the know-how that you have the expertise, and or if you don't have it, you can find it and you can apply it and develop it. Then I'm going to touch on the host institution. It was said that in the ERC grants, the host institution does not matter and it's not evaluated, but I don't think this is the case. I mean, I've worked in Pasteur Institute, and also like there's institutions that are kind of outliers in terms of the statistical outliers in terms of the ERC grants they attract, such as Pasteur Institute in France, and then you have the Biocentrum in Switzerland, and Max Planck Institutes. Of course, you can argue that these institutions already kind of attract the creme de la creme, the kind of the best and brightest, but it's also kind of the infrastructure and the instrumentation these places provide, the support in additional personnel. Basically, most of these places, if you get an ERC grant, they will double it with a starting package or additional funding package, especially at the starting age. And then when you go to apply for a consolidator grant, you will have basically, you will compete with people from these institutions that would have had twice the resources or 3 times the resources or 10 times the resources, and that would probably reflect also in publication record and collaborations and so on. So this can help. Of course, it will be difficult for kind of marginal countries to compete with that, but it's not impossible. So, for example, like I'm in the French National Research Network, and it's basically not very different in terms of institutional support. I get nothing. But the scientific environment, potential collaborations. In my case, we're really like I'm in an incubator kind of institute that we have excellent technology platforms for all methods in structural biology. So basically, these are things that you can stress on, and you can highlight. If you have international collaborations, large projects, and so on, you can highlight those for your benefit. So don't be stressed that you don't come from like a top institution. Just try to find what is strong and highlight it for your panel to know that you're in the right place and you have the means and network and resources to succeed in your project. And then just for the second part of the interview, of course, it was already said, respect your panel instructions. Some panels have like 5 minutes, which is basically an elevator pitch. Other panels have like longer times for the presentation. Everything is on a timer. You'll be interrupted if you don't finish on time. Be clear and knowledgeable, not obscure, so don't go into like gory technical details or a lot of jargon. So be synthetic and clear, but knowledgeable. Respect your audience. So this is the second time you can win them over, and be assertive and confident. So I strongly suggest that you hypothesize, I mean, again, in a brief and concise format, but don't bullshit, but kind of don't say, I don't know, or I cannot answer the question. This is not an exam, really. It's more like a discussion. So as a senior scientist that, is in a room with the experts that you would never get together in the same place at the same time, you should be able to lead a scientific discussion. So, and then I have this thing that I was telling you about personality. I really recommend this TED Talk about confidence. So I often rewatch it before when I have like key interviews. So I really recommend it from my MCutting. It's on YouTube. And then the one important thing is also that the way the interview goes was my impression in both calls is that they actually follow the external reviewers kind of peer reviews. So basically, because your grant is going to go to anywhere between 8 and 12 external experts for peer review. They will have their comments. They'll have specific queries, and then the panel more or less they have an idea of. More or less, they have an opinion of your project, and they will go through specific queries that the reviewers are raised. I had on one of my grants, I had one reviewer that was very. Obviously, he didn't want my project to be funded at all. I don't know who that person is, but this was taken into account by the panel. They never asked me about his comments or anything, so they assumed that he has some sort of a conflict of interest. But my point is also that the panel already has an opinion. So your interview is kind of to reinforce it and to make it work, and the opinion will come mostly from your project. So in my case, I had both my interviews were kind of a disaster. So in my first interview was in person in Brussels, and I had the bright idea to go a day early so that I can be on time for my presentation in the morning, and kind of calmly prepare everything. And then I decided to taste the local delicacy of mussels with French fries. And then I got food poisoning, and I spent the whole night basically very, very sick. And then my interview was kind of not great because I was literally trying to not throw up and was a bit dismissive with a couple of questions on kind of budget aspects and things like this. But again, this didn't change the opinion of the panel, and overall, like, my grant was funded straight, and the questions were very much technical questions from basically the reviewers evaluation, and a nice scientific discussion with the person that I believe was my handler in the first round. That was my rapporteur, or the expert that actually chooses the reviewers. And then on my consolidator grant was even worse, because as it happened in the beginning of this presentation, it was remote, so I was in Bordeaux and the panel was in.
Petya, sorry that interrupt, but we are behind the schedule too much.
Yeah, okay. I mean that basically my computer died during the presentation, and again, the panel kept their opinion. Basically, the interview didn't go as well as it could have. But basically, from the strength of the project, it was eventually funded. So prepare your proposal well, and be focused, and think in perspective, and think large scale. So that's my sense. So I'm done. This was my last slide.
Thank you very much, Petya.
Yeah.
And let me just underline, as you point out, yes, there could be differences in levels of resources in institutions, but the host institution is not an evaluation criterion in ERC.
No, I know that, but I believe it does play a role in the competition that you're gonna meet. Basically, if you're competing against people that have already had a lot of access to resources, which is okay, but also I believe it does play a role in the kind of the mindset of the reviewers, and not so much. It's also kind of what kind of access you have. Because for me, for example, we are very technical.
Let me just reassure you from the side of the ERC, it doesn't. But I understand you're talking about resource levels can be different depending on the host institution. But thank you very much for your insight into your two grants. Just in the interest of time, we need to move on to the last speaker, who's Christos Vilanov, who is based at the Technical University of Munich. So, Christos, I understand you're in the room.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm online. Can you hear me?
You're online. I beg your pardon. You're online. I see you now.
Great, and you can see the slides.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Christos Vilanov. I studied in Sofia pharmacy, and then I did my PhD at the University of Munich. Directly after the PhD, I disconnected from my PhD supervisor and went to do a postdoc in biotechnology at the Technical University of Munich. Then after about 2 years of postdoc, I got my first professorship at Ghent University in Belgium. And in 24, I got an offer for another professorship. This was completely independent of the ERC, but I had the chance to come back to the Technical University of Munich. So at each of these career stage, I have been obtaining grants of increasing size, and basically this was also a prerequisite for me to go to the next career stage in academia. So I'm telling you this, and how is it important to the ERC? Moving around groups and moving around research fields as well shows that you are mobile and that you are independent and that you are really trying to move further in your career. And demonstrating that you have obtained already third-party funding, although if it is smaller than the ERC, it shows that you have in general good ideas and that you can manage projects. So I applied 2 times for the starting grant. The first time was immediately when I was eligible in 21. And this was exactly the time when I was moving to Belgium, starting my group. So I didn't have much time, and I didn't have much time to think about the idea and to write the project. Still, at the end, what I submitted was a good project, was polished, but at the end of the day, it was rejected already at step 1. However, this was probably the best that could have happened, because first, the reviews were extremely valuable. I really knew what I have to do in the next step. And second, I was blocked for reapplying 1 year, which means I had the time to sit back and think a little bit about the hypothesis, write a completely new project, and then to try again. The second attempt, then 2 years later, was successful. This was the deadline in 23. Here I had a new strategy. I came up with a really nice hypothesis already 2 years before the deadline. So then I waited a little bit, a few months, and then I was thinking about the hypothesis again, if I still like it and if I think it is worthy for an ERC. And after I was really convinced this is worthy for an ERC, then I started writing. This was about 1 year before the deadline. And then already more than 6 months before the deadline, I started sending out the proposal to different colleagues and to people from different fields. So basically my recommendation here is to see what expertises you have in the panel, and then to pick out people with similar expertises around you, and then just ask them to read your proposal, especially the B1 part, and ask them if they understand it. And if they're your friends, they will be really mean, and they will try to destroy basically everything you're proposing. But this is just the way it goes, and you need this feedback before you submit. So when you reach the level where people start contradicting each other about what you should change in the proposal and polish, I think that's the level where you know it's ready. And the other thing was that I decided to change the panel, considering that there was a new focus, a new topic, and I thought it would be well appreciated by a different panel. Now, after you get the news that you go to step 2, to the interview, you have a few weeks, and that's not a time for celebration, but basically the moment you hear you're invited for the interview, you should really start working hard for preparing the presentation and preparing yourself for the interview. So here my advice is to prepare the slides as soon as possible, as you know you're invited. Universities, at least in Belgium and Germany, were offering training sessions, which are not always very useful, but at least they allow you to practice a little bit, to give the presentation, to hear other opinions. So that's a nice opportunity. And if something like this is available to you, you should also use it. And again, it's up to you to organize a lot of mock interviews with colleagues from different fields, and to give them the presentation, to hear their honest feedback, and to try to improve. So I gave probably dozens of these interviews, and at the end, the slides that I did in the beginning and the slides that I presented in front of the panel were very different. But practicing is extremely important. You don't have time, and you have to be really, really fluent with the presentation. And also, while you do the presentation, you have to think about the possible questions of the panel. There are examples you can find online, but also ask your peers, ask your colleagues in the mock interviews, and then you will be able to foresee maybe 80-90% of the questions you're going to get from the panel. And please don't underestimate the technical setup. ERC was using WebEx, which almost nobody else is using, and this causes a lot of IT issues. So it's very important how you set up your computer and prepare for the day. So the interview was successful, and in my opinion, it went well, but this doesn't always say something. The decision to fund the project was actually the ultimate proof that everything was good. And the project was focused on a special type of immunoglobulins, immune proteins that were recently discovered. So we have been working on this for a few years, and we published very well on this field. But I basically came up with a new hypothesis that these very peculiar immunoglobulins that have very diverse structures have a completely new function in nature, in a way that it helps us helps organisms to fight off microbial infections. And with this, basically the impacts of the project or expected impacts are that we can provide some fundamental insights about what is out there in nature and what does it mean to have these proteins. And also, as the follow-up consequence, we can design and we can discover new antimicrobial agents. So in the summary, it's very important you work on your profile. This doesn't happen 6 months before the deadline. It's just your career path that you should be pushing. As soon as you're eligible, you have to start applying. That's really an experience, and you have to start as soon as possible. And having the feedback of the panel should be taken very seriously and honestly, and should be considered when you're preparing to reapply. And for me, the really, I think people say it often, but that's really at the core of it. And it's the most important thing here. You need a great hypothesis. So you need an ERC hypothesis. This should be really evident. And in addition to that, it should be very easy to explain this hypothesis to people which are also not specialists in your field. So in a way that when you show a slide about this project and about your idea to somebody and say 3 sentences, and they should say, aha, that's very interesting. So that's I think the important thing at the core before you start writing and preparing yourself. And I want to finish with a nice quote from Marie Curie, which is that the way of progress is not swift and not easy. And I think that this is something that fits very well to the ERC program, and this is what you learn during the application process. And I think it's meant to be hard and it's meant to be challenging. And this is what will get the best out of the people that apply and the researchers. And this shouldn't scare people to apply. This should only motivate you to try and try again and improve your research and also improve your application. So thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Christoph, for your insights and personal experience of the ERC process. I need to ask our colleagues in the room, we're slightly behind time. Is it okay for you if we take questions and answers for another 5 minutes? Is that okay for our colleagues within the room? Well,
yeah. Let's start with the 5 minutes question.
Okay, well, the first question, if I can ask my colleagues to share it on screen, is to all 3 grantees, and is their personal experience, where the question is, in your personal opinion, which part, I don't see it there on screen, but the one I see is, in your personal opinion, which part of the application process is the most difficult? Conceiving and writing the proposal, submission, interview, or other stages? So maybe we go in reverse order and we start directly with Risto.
Yeah, for me, the most important part is finding the idea that, is an ERC idea. So that's very important because it unlocks a chain of events that cause a lot of work and a lot of time involvement. And if your idea at the start and hypothesis is not good enough, then you're just wasting your time, to be honest.
Very true. Petja, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It's also kind of, the conceptual part, of course, is key, but also kind of writing the proposal and basically balancing expertise and kind of jargon with kind of more accessible format for the B1 versus B2 part, for example, is important. So there's a lot of things that you can do at the preparation stage that are already good towards success. And also, again, like what I have to stress is that it has to be a large kind of far-reaching proposal, 20 to 25 years of research with a lot of potential pitfalls and alternative approaches basically to cover. So to me, that's the most important, at least in my cases, I think that was the key to the success of both proposals.
Thank you very much. And Elio, do you have anything to add to that? Any different opinion?
Can you hear me?
We do indeed.
Okay. So in our case, for me, it was a process of enrichment, the whole process. But the most difficult was we are in the humanities and we can't keep so short. To keep this 5 pages and 15 pages in our case for the part B, and after it to fit in the 15 minutes to present very complex issues, it was a challenge. And I enjoyed the whole process of preparation without thinking about the result. But when we succeeded to the last level interview, the interview was a little bit stressful for me because of this strict guideline, because of the narrow room full of experts, because of the wall behind us counting each second. And I'm not such a public figure. It can be heard here also. So it was a stressful experience, but nevertheless an enriching one. And I overcame my fears because we were warned that the interview, the panel members are very serious, very strong. no smiling faces. It was not the case. It was a very friendly environment. Nevertheless, I wouldn't say it's a conversation. It's a different situation. You have to be very short, very condensed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's try and take another couple of questions so we finish. Maybe, Christo, I think the next question is aligned to what you said when you said you applied to a different panel. So to apply for a starting grant, if I don't have any publications related to the new idea I wish to propose, my expertise is in the general field. Would that be an issue? From your perspective, how did you see that? And I'll come to Andre afterwards.
Well, it's very personal experience, but the first time I was told you have to select like a top publication around which you build the project. And I selected such, and in the first time I applied, the panel wrote that they appreciate the publication in the center of the proposal. And this meant to me, I have to stick to this publication. And it was an important publication I also liked, so that was fine for me. I cannot tell if you can be complete. I think if you can justify how you're doing this move, that's fine, but you have to convince people that this makes sense, what you're,
Indeed, it's that convincing. Andre, would you like to add anything more here?
Yeah, maybe just one comment. So if you have one publication that's at the heart of your proposal, of course, then you're ideally set up for building your proposal around it. I wouldn't see that as a necessity, though. The question really is, will the panel in the end see that you're able to carry out the project as you propose it? So if you have a publication in exactly that area, of course, there is the proof right there. If you don't, that doesn't mean that you're not qualified to do it. So it depends on the situation and how the panel sees it.
And I think maybe we can just come back to Milen directly. I think from the panel members' perspective, they're excited by the ideas, first of all, rather than your publication record, track record comes as a secondary aspect to excite the panel. They're excited by your ideas. I think that's the most important thing. Milen, would you add anything in that respect? I see you.
Okay, no. I'm here. It is important to have independent articles, and I think that by this article, sir, you show your expertise. For me personally, it doesn't matter in what field they are, because if you can prove that you can work independent and you are skillful enough, then you can apply this knowledge to different fields. So for me personally, it's okay to have articles in different fields, because in this way you prove your quality.
Thank you. Andre, I'll take the next question to you. It's based on things we've already touched on, but maybe you can add a few more elements. What's the speciality level of a PI for a starting grant, and how's it measured?
So I think the first part of the question of the specialty level and the publications is probably answered by the previous question. So mostly you need to be able to demonstrate that you can carry out the project, the groundbreaking, ambitious project as you have suggested, as you proposed it. For the second question, when balancing the originality of the proposal and expertise of the PI, what do evaluators focus on? So there has been an evolution at the ERC to move more and more towards giving more weight to the proposal. So it's really the idea, what are you doing? Why is it important? How are you going to do it? And the expertise of the PI is really just to make sure that the PI can carry out this project. So in a way, one of course depends on the other. In order to carry out a top research project that's really groundbreaking, you do need to have the according profile. But at the forefront of the evaluation is the project.
Thank you. I'll take the next question myself directly and quickly. What happens if you have budgeted staff costs for a position, for example, a PhD student, no one applies and the position remains unfilled? I think that can happen, doesn't happen constantly. Apologies if you can hear an alarm in the background. It's our normal fire alarm tests on the first Thursday of the month. Apologies for that. But The answer to that is the ERC grants are designed to be flexible as much as possible, both in terms of your science, but also in terms of your budget. So you should be in that position. You can move budgets to other headings. You probably will need to speak to your project officer in the ERC to let them know, see if a formal amendment is needed. But minor changes of budget distribution between different grant headings is perfectly allowed. So we'd be as flexible as possible in terms of your grant management. Question, perhaps I come to you, Andre, on the next one. Would it be considered sufficient expertise if my experience with a method comes mainly from a course, for example, training on a summer school or another short course?
I would doubt that a panel would see that as sufficient expertise, just by looking at the level of specialization that comes from it. You're now in a whole room full of people who take the same training. There is nothing really that makes you stand out. If you do come out with an idea from this and you do have the background to carry out a project, that would of course be different, but it's not really at the core of this question. So is this enough to convince a panel? In my opinion, no.
And it may also be that you need to think about the staffing profile on your grants then, whether that means you bring in a collaborator, whether you bring in a specialist postdoc with experience in this area. I mean, it depends on the core element of this particular method to your grant, whether it's something which is the central focus of your grant. Then I think Andre would be what Andrew says is probably correct. If it's something which is tangential and you can fulfill the expertise through bringing in a collaborator or bringing in a specialist postdoc, then that may be able to give a convincing argument as well. We have one final question. And for those of you who asked questions in the first session we haven't answered, we will ensure that those are answered in writing afterwards. So Andre, perhaps I come back to you looking at when it comes to open science, and is a data management plan part of the project description?
No, it's not part of the project, but within 6 months of the award of the project, you will have to submit a data management plan that respects the usual principles of good data management, meaning the FAIR principles, but not part of the proposal.
Thank you. I think then, Bojan, in the interest of time, because I know you have a closed session with the colleagues in the room, we will close the questions and answers here. I'd really like to thank all of our speakers, but Andre from my colleague, but particularly our 3 ERC grantees and our formal panel member. I think it's great to have your insights and showing how it's done so that we can ensure that we receive more applications from Bulgarian researchers. I really thank you for taking your time to share your experiences with this today. For those of you who are in the room or online and want to revisit parts of the presentations, the recordings and the presentations will be available on our website. Allow us a day or two to make sure that they're fully online and everything works technically. But then if you keep checking the website of this webinar on our website, it'll be there within a day or two. If there are equally any unanswered questions, will also be coming available on our website too. One of the things which I wanted to mention, where Bulgaria currently doesn't have a representative, the Scientific Council has worked together with the Association of ERC Grantees to put in place what we call the ambassadors for the ERC. And these are current ERC grantees who act as advocates for the importance of funding frontier research on the basis of a bottom-up, the need to have complete freedom in terms of how the research ideas are put forward. It should be the idea of the researcher rather than coming from political criteria. At the moment, there is no Bulgarian ambassador for the ERC, so perhaps speaking to the 3 grantees that we see here online and other Bulgarian grantees would really welcome you putting yourselves forward if this would be of interest, and to do so, then we can put you in contact with the Association of ERC Grantees who organize this initiative. For those of you who are looking to apply, and we hope many of you are now inspired to apply, remember your first point of contact is the national contact points. So they're there in the room with you, and I see they're waving, and to those of you in the room. So thank you very much to Bojan and also to Zara for all of their work, and they will also be your first point of contact. So I would like to thank all of the speakers. I would like to thank my colleagues behind the scenes, to John and to Elena, who've been managing the technical parts. Again, thanking the speakers. And I wish you, those of you in the room who are staying on site for the second part of the discussion in Bulgarian, I wish you a fruitful discussion. And we look forward to seeing more applications from Bulgarian researchers and in the future, more successful Bulgarian researchers winning ERC grants. So with that, I'll draw the online session to a close. Wish you all a good afternoon and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Martin. Morning, all Brussels team. So we switch in Bulgarian with all people who are online. You now in August 8. You want to push if you can.